Okay, I guess we're live, Deepu. Hi, everyone. Um,
Madhav.
Welcome to Equip's second live stream. I'm Madhav, and I work in curriculum and content development here at Equip. Uh, so, before introducing Deepu, let me start with introducing Equip. We're a new edtech startup, and we're looking to solve the employability problem in India. Most schools and colleges don't prepare their students for the world of work. And we are looking to rectify that as much as we can through
Ability problem.
interventions with college students, fresh graduates, as well as those who are early on in their career. Um, we will be doing regular live streams on our YouTube channel with experts, educators, and employers so that all our interventions are informed by those who know what they're talking about. Our first stream was with Saurabh Tiwari, who leads sales at Equip. Today, our second stream is with Deepu, who heads growth here. So, through Deepu's journey from an engineering graduate to his current role, we'll explore what it takes to be successful at marketing. If you have any questions, you can ask them through the live chat on YouTube, and we'll try and take them up towards the end. So, to begin the conversation, I'll ask Deepu to introduce himself and tell us a bit about his journey. So, go ahead, Deepu.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, great to be here talking about marketing uh, in general for people who are curious about what marketing entails and how they can get into this field, but also about what uh, is it like down in the depths of it. So yeah. So for my journey, I actually graduated as a mechanical engineer. I didn't really have much of a clue, like a lot of freshers, about what I wanted to do after college. The goal was just to get a job and then see what the world is like. Luckily, I was placed in a company where I was in more of a consulting role, consulting other companies to grow, mainly legacy companies in India, which are quite big, but consulting them on strategy and operations. Um, so this was with McKinsey, and I think one thing I realized, so you get a lot of insight into the inner workings of a company. How does it move stuff from one place to another? How does it sell? What are its products? One thing I learned, I think after about 3.5 years of that, I sort of started to get my learning started to plateau a little bit, and I figured that I needed a change. And this was around 2014 or so, and that's when the whole startup ecosystem was becoming super interesting. So I left McKinsey, and then I joined a senior of mine who was starting Bombay Shaving Company in a completely new role where we had no idea what to do. But the whole idea, what we knew was we wanted to sell a product online. So that's where my journey into marketing began. It began, interestingly enough, as a product role. So I was responsible for making the product. And as part of making the product, there was a lot of research that was done into what exactly people want. And the whole idea there was, how do we give people a better shave? Um, so started researching a lot, and then we had our own personal experiences shaving every day as part of a corporate. So we had our own experiences to draw upon, and based on that, we created a product. And then when it came time to start selling it, is when I started to get involved more in marketing. So we had new digital channels which were opening up then. So Facebook, Google were fairly new channels, and then we started to experiment around how do we um, how do we sell this product. So marketing for me, the journey that began there as a way to get sales, which is what my understanding of marketing is. From there on, I moved on to make more products for another company, uh, which was a part of Times Group. Even there, I was involved in sales for my products. So And yeah, I think through that journey, my understanding of digital channels grew, my understanding of what sells, how to sell a product, how do you convince customers of your value proposition in really, in less than a second, on your Facebook feed or your or a Google search result, uh, is what drove me into the field. But I think one thing I realized at that point was that marketing was super intuitive and super interesting to me, way more than what I was doing previously. And that's how, yeah, I just became super interested in the field, started reading a lot, started experimenting a lot, and then that's how I ended up at Equip, uh, doing marketing and growth.
Okay. Okay. So you said you're basically self-taught in
Kind
marketing,
kind of,
kind
yeah.
of. Okay. In what sense, kind of? Like you've had some formal education?
No, so I've not had any formal education. I had to educate myself. And I think in today's world where you have a lot of things available on YouTube, plus there were a bunch of books which have been written on the topic. So I basically just read a bunch of books, talked to a few people, and then there were a lot of channels available to experiment. I think one of the advantages of digital channels is that it allows anybody to learn marketing, because if you look back to when you had mainly bigger forms of advertising, right? If you have to run an ad on a TV channel, it costs several crores. If you have to run a radio ad, it costs several lakhs. If you have to run a print ad in a newspaper, again, that costs you several lakhs. So no one would want to risk that amount of money on a person who doesn't know marketing. But what happened with digital channels is that you could start running Facebook ads for 500 bucks a day. You could spend that money out of your own pocket, and you would get real actionable insight into what was working and what is not working. So it allowed people like me to experiment a lot. It allowed people like me to try out various concepts. And then also on the sales side, because now you're not selling the same way that you used to before. Earlier, people were selling, they would make one packaging, they would put it in a bunch of stores. So that would be several crores of inventory that would have to go into stores. And if your product doesn't sell, then that is a huge loss. Um, but we don't have to do that anymore, right? Because you can make a website for very cheap. It's basically free now to make a website and start selling. And you can change that website every day or every hour. So both advertising and selling became really cheap, uh, which allowed people like me to experiment a lot, and then through that, at least learn one aspect of marketing, which is advertising. Then there are other aspects, like branding, which are a little more nuanced, and a little more investment heavy, which I sort of learned over time. Um, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's sort of how I learned.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So you made a distinction between marketing and sales a few times. What is marketing? The basic question before we go into how you do marketing well is what is marketing and how's it different from sales?
So yeah, that's a very good question and a very hard question to answer, because in my opinion, it's impossible to draw a line to say that okay, this is where marketing ends and this is where sales begins. Fundamentally, if you look at a business, to a business, what matters is sales. They make a product and then they have to sell the product. By selling the product, you earn revenue, and if you've made a good product, then people will pay you more than it costs you to create the product, and hence the business makes a profit. Marketing, and if you just go back several hundred years, let's say, when there was no mass media available, sales was primarily just going up to people and telling them about your product, going up to people and telling them, hey, look at this chair, right? Or you would, let's say, if there was a street where a bunch of people were coming, you would put some board or you would write something over there, so that more number of people can learn about the product that you're offering. So that's sort of where marketing begins, where you're automating a small part of sales, which is telling people about your product. I mean, the idea behind it is how do you tell people about your product, uh, which would then lead to a sale. So that's sort of where marketing begins. And then as you have more channels to tell people about your product, it sort of automates certain aspects of sale. um, and then there are ways, I mean, to put it simply, I think marketing is just a way to reduce uh, your cost of selling a product. So, and sequentially, it starts with making people aware of your product. It then goes on to educating them about the various features, then goes on to giving them some promotions or discounts and securing that final sale. So sequentially, it's just optimizing your cost uh, to move people along the sales funnel and finally securing a sale.
Yeah. Okay. So you also talked about the relationship between your work you started with on product, on like shaving stuff, and then marketing that shaving stuff.
Yeah.
So that relationship also seems interesting because it seems to me like you can't really build a product without thinking about how you're going to take it out to the market. So can you talk a
Right.
bit about that relationship between building a product and marketing a product?
So, yeah, in a way, I think one question you need to answer when you build a product is, will people find this valuable? Is this something that people want? Um, and that is market research, which you use in making the product, but you also use it then in your marketing communication. So you talk to a bunch of people who you think will need your product. You ask them what are the problems they face, and if you get a sense that yes, my product will solve the problems that these people are facing, then you make that product, and then uh, you tell them about it, depending on what platform they're on. So, yeah, it sort of stems from the same idea of understanding consumer needs, uh, which then uh, goes on to build out both your product as well as your marketing approach.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Okay, okay.
I,
So, yeah, sorry, did
did
I
that
interrupt?
answer the question? I think.
Yeah, I think broadly, yeah, that when you're building a product, you need to think about how you're going to outreach, how you're going to reach out to your customers, what language you're going to use, I guess, and also in order to refine the product, you need to figure out what the customers want. I mean, initially, in fact, even to build the product, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
kind of.
both.
So I think outreach is one part of it, but just making the product, you have to be solving a specific need. You have to be solving something that people want. Only then will they pay you for it.
Mhm.
So that is one aspect of it. And then yeah, when you feel that okay, there are enough number of people for whom I'm solving this problem, uh, then you get more into the outreach aspect, to see how can I optimize my costs, so that I can tell people about this product in a cost effective way. And that's where the whole go to market side of it comes in, which is what you mentioned by outreach.
Okay, okay. That sounds good. Okay. So, what is your, so maybe stepping back from this general discussion, what does your day to day work involve? That might be helpful for somebody who's thinking about getting into marketing. So, what does the day to day work of a person in marketing involve, at least in your role?
Yeah. So so marketing depends on what stage the product is at. um, so if you have, uh, let's say you're at the stage where you're still in the initial stages, your product is not yet finalized, you're trying to figure out what are the channels and where am I growing, then marketing involves a lot of experimentation. So your day to day would be trying out different things, uh, trying out different channels specifically to learn where are my customers. It would also involve talking to a lot of customers to understand more about their needs and how can you best communicate to them. Um, and then once you've started to mature quite a bit, it's sort of by that time when you've matured, when your product is already established or established to a certain extent, uh, you sort of know where are my customers. And there is a if you have a product uh, which is, let's say, time specific, that okay, people who are within the age of 20 to 25 will find my product valuable, then every year there are new people coming into that batch of people. So you keep and assuming that the marketing channels have by then been fixed to an extent, you will keep reaching out to these new people that are coming in whatever communication, and you'll sort of adapt your communication to whatever new batch of people is coming in. uh, so then it becomes a little bit more mature and um, more predetermined in a way, because you know where are these people, and you know that if uh, you are communicating to them correctly, you'll be able to get profitable sales. So the day-to-day work depends on what stage the product is at. And it doesn't mean that you will be doing one or the other, right? You might be doing multiple things. So you might have a mature product where you know that okay, I'm going to be marketing on Instagram and YouTube, and you know that these are the things that this is the content that I need to keep pushing out to keep people engaged on my platform, and then they will convert to a sale. So that part is established. And on the other side, when you might also be working on a new product which still involves a lot of experimentation, which still involves a little bit of figuring out where are my target customers and how do I communicate to them. So you might be working on both. You might be working on a mature product, or you might be just working on the initial stages
Okay.
of the
So,
product.
so maybe let's focus on. I guess what you're doing right now is working on the initial stages of a product,
Yeah,
of multiple products at Equip, because
true.
we are relatively new, so we are trying. We're working on a bunch of new products. So maybe by taking an example,
Mhm.
either from Equip or from your previous Bombay Shaving Company or wherever, where you were working on a new product. Um, what do you mean when you say experimenting? And maybe with some concrete examples.
So I think you can talk to even 100 people. uh, let's say when you're making the product, you talk to 100 people, you might talk to 500 people, but you still don't have enough of an idea of how to uh, profitably convert people from that channel uh, and generate sales. uh, so what you're doing initially is experimenting at a channel level, and also experimenting at a communication level. You because uh, s- there are ways of communicating which can give you huge differences in sale. If I say, uh, hey, check out this product, it has it has these features and these benefits, which is a very rational way of communicating value, you might get a certain amount of conversion from that communication. Like a certain number of people will uh, resonate with that, and they will come on your platform, check out your product, and convert. But then if you try a different form of communication, where you're connecting with them emotionally, you might say something like, 500 people have changed their lives by trying this product, right? So adding a few emotional elements in there which are not rational, but are communicating with uh, slightly deeper parts of somebody's brain, then you might have a higher chance of getting people onto your platform, uh, and then they will be more interested in what you have to say. They'll be more likely to come and read about your product, and then you might end up getting more conversions. So that's this sort of the advertising aspect of it. in the early days, um, where you're experimenting not just on channels but also on communications. On the channel side, like I said, you might be looking at, especially with online, you might be looking at Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, to see where are my people and how do I find them. And then you can go into a lot of depth into each channel individually as well. There is also the other aspect of selling, which is sort of building your brand, which also falls under marketing, where the idea, so the way, and these are all kind of concepts which are mixed into each other. So it's hard to draw a line and say, okay, this is marketing and this is branding and this is advertising. Um, so branding is sort of building a persona of your products, of your company, in the mind of the user. So it's one step beyond product, because you're not just selling a product, you're selling the idea of who you are to that person, so that they trust you and they trust whatever products you're bringing to the market, and then they end up buying from you. Like thinking, so another way to think about it from an analogy perspective is, let's say I'm at a party, and there's 300 people at the party, and I need to tell everyone, um, I need to introduce myself to everyone at the party. So one way to do it is to go individually and talk to a bunch of people, which which is more the advertising approach, right? Which is more direct selling, which is like, okay, I'm me finding you on your Facebook feed and telling you about my product. That is one approach. The other approach is that I have done some pre-work. So I know that there are going to be 500 people at this party, but I've already uh, given whatever service, or I've already introduced myself and made a very, very amazing impression on 20 people at this party. Right? They've spoken to me. They're like, yeah, this is a trustworthy guy. He told us he will do this, and he's done that. He's delivered. So then those 20 people are so happy with me that they go and tell the other 500 people about it. So what happens is that we tend to value recommendations that we get much more, recommendations about X much more than X telling us about what they do. So that's sort of where branding comes in, where you where you give consistently good experiences to so many people that they start talking about you to other people. So that's the
I,
whole branding approach that
okay,
comes
so I
in.
guess one other strategy in your party analogy would be to go dressed in fluorescent green and uh,
Yeah.
bright, shocking pink, and stand there, and then everybody will come to you and ask you who you are. Is there an analogy to that in marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is what marketing is, right? If you want to talk to so many people, you have to differentiate yourself in some way, and they have to know that, okay, this person has something unique to offer. Which is what, so when we say, so in marketing we have a term which is scroll stopping ads, right? So if somebody is just mindlessly scrolling on their phone, there has to be something which makes them stop and listen. So there has to be something differentiated. uh, so there's this marketer, Seth Godin. He gives an example that, okay, let's say you're driving by the Indian countryside. There's a bunch of cows on the road, or not countryside, Indian cities. There's hundreds of cows on the road, but you never notice a cow in particular. If it's the first time you're seeing a cow, yeah, you might say, oh, there's a cow. But then after 10 minutes, you've seen so many cows that you don't care. But then suddenly there is a cow which is purple colored. Everyone will turn their heads and look at that cow, and because that cow has then drawn your attention. So that is sort of what it is, right? You want to get people's attention. uh, in a way it's just about uh, deeply, you know sort of like hacking into the human brain, uh,
Mhm.
uh, figuring out figuring out how can you position something in a way where people pay attention to
Mhm.
what you have to say.
Yeah, I guess you're using human cognition and cognitive biases against themselves, against the human, and not necessarily against the human, but uh,
Yeah,
to uh, to kind of make them take a look at what you have to offer. Uh,
absolutely. I think I mean you might say that. So there are a lot of people who think marketing is manipulation, and you can certainly make the case for that. Uh, but the thing is, there is a fine line between influence and manipulation, uh, and that line basically depends on whether you believe what you're offering is valuable or not, which is the intent behind it. Because everyone is using the same techniques, but if you're not fundamentally offering something of value to people, then yes, you are probably manipulating. Uh, but if you are fundamentally offering something valuable to people, then that is more on the lines of influence. And people can tell the difference, right? They might buy once, but they will never come back and buy from you again if they feel that you manipulated them and you did not offer anything of value.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
In most cases, you're probably right, but I would guess an example of manipulative but highly successful uh, people would be like cult leaders and stuff like that, who are probably very good at marketing, who we could probably learn a
yeah,
lot from, even in for our
yeah.
goals. Uh,
And yeah,
yeah.
they do have, I guess you can make the case that some of them do have a very strong command over marketing and growing their brand, which is true.
At least to their target market. And
Yeah.
so that's actually the next thing I wanted to come to, which was how do you figure out who to target, how to go about finding that person you're looking to target for some product that you're trying to sell.
So uh, again, I think it comes down. So there's a bunch of people who are your target market. You know that, okay, so let's say you're selling a product for pregnant women. So you can only target women who are pregnant. uh, and there is a certain number of pregnant women in the world. So you will then first figure out what does their day look like, right? Where are they spending their time? Are they spending their time online? Are they spending their time in stores? Are they watching TV? So where are they? uh, and then you come up with a list. Okay, they are spending time on X, Y, Z, alpha, beta, whatever. And you say, okay, they are spending this much time. uh, and then you also add in another layer of what is my ability when they are on this platform to tell them about myself, right? Do they have time, or is there do I have the ability to influence them at this point of time? I mean, if they are at the gynecologist and you go and tell them about, hey, buy these babies clothes, it might be effective. I don't know, I've not tried it, but most likely they will be in a mindset of figuring out if they're facing some problems, or if they're going for a test. They'll be more they may not be in the mindset to listen to you at that point, right? uh, so you have to figure out at what point when they are on that platform do you want to put your communication forth. So social channels work reasonably well across target groups, because mostly when people are spending time on social media, it's because they are bored. So if you communicate something interesting to them, they would want to listen. Similarly, when it comes to television, people are mostly, uh, I mean, nobody likes to see an ad. Everyone hates advertising. Everyone hates ads. But then if you tell something the right way, if you make it interesting for them, if you communicate something valuable to them, then they will somewhere listen to you. Uh, then it comes down to what is the cost of telling them this at a channel level.
Mhm.
And then that sort of you go from there. So you
Mhm.
build out your strategy as per that.
Yeah. Okay. So there's the one part of this is what you said. Once you know your target market, then trying to figure out how to communicate best to them, either through deciding on what channel or deciding um, when to communicate to them, and so on. These are all the decisions you need to make there. But there's also the other part, which would be maybe the product's designed for pregnant women, but the product is for a subset of pregnant women, and you need to figure out what the specific target market is within the larger universe. Is that something which would come under the ambit of marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think whenever there is a customer involved, and the customer has a certain need for your product, uh, then that and you have to get your message across to that customer, then it does come under marketing, right?
Mhm.
The fundamental problem with selling products is that not every product can be profitably sold,
Mhm.
uh, because if you're targeting a problem which only affects 0.1% of pregnant women, and let's say your solution and you're charging 300 rupees for your product, there is no way that you will be able to get your message across uh, to this zero point 0.1 percentage of women in a way that is cost efficient where your company makes a profit. So you will eventually go out of business. You might invest some amount for a time, but then if the number of if the people who are pregnant keep getting refreshed every year and your product is not such a life saver product, if it's like a really minor thing, and it's targeting a very small niche, then there might be no effective channels to market it, and your product may not see the light of day. I mean, it might see, but it may not survive for long enough in the market.
Mhm.
uh, so yeah, that there is some of that. So in general, to sell products in this world, your product does need to have enough customers out there, and you do need to have profitable ways of getting your message to those customers, for your business to make money.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So I guess that has kind of answered this question, but might be useful to put it to reiterate some bits of that, which is that what are some effective ways to measure the success of a marketing campaign?
Right.
How do you know
um,
whether something that you've done is successful? Yeah.
it depends on the objective. So if it comes to advertising, then return on investment is the most important metric to measure, uh, because advertising is really about getting sales profitably, and
Hmm.
anything else is just losing your money. uh, if you're and you can, so again, the lines are kind of blurry over here,
Mhm.
but there are elements of branding built into advertising, so you can sort of uh, communicate in a way where you propagate the message.
Mhm.
So if you give something, I mean, again, it's about how human beings think, right? So if you uh, human beings like to talk to each other. uh, they like to have interesting conversations with each other. They like to tell other people about something new that they've
Mhm.
heard. uh, so if your goal with the marketing campaign is more about building, uh, spreading the word among a bunch of people, that you may not directly measure the return on investment as sales. You might measure your return on investment as the number of people who know about your product.
Mhm.
And then, because you know that once they know about your product, you can then convert them easier down the line, maybe 1 year down the line, maybe 6 months down the line, and you will build your future communication strategies accordingly. So it sort of depends on the goal, but usually when it comes to advertising, the goal is return on investment. When it comes to branding, your goals might be to build more followers, to build more awareness, to build a community of people who will keep repeatedly buying. Doesn't apply to every product, but yeah, that's sort of how I would think about it.
Okay, cool. So you've mentioned social media a few times while we've been talking about stuff as an effective channel for marketing, at least for some things. So how do you go about marketing things on social media? What are the different ways you go about doing that?
So I think so. Social media, by social media, you mean your Facebooks, Instagrams, TikTok. Okay, TikTok is not there, but whatever TikTok
Yeah.
clones that you have,
And I guess
uh,
even YouTube, where we are right now.
YouTube.
Um, hmm,
Yes. So uh, so you every social media platform has certain uh, has some media inventory, right? So every social media platform, most social media platforms, let's say, make money on advertising. That is their main source of revenue, and they have created media inventory. So Facebook will show you one ad every four, or Instagram will show you one ad after four scrolls. Or if you're on stories, maybe after every three scrolls. So there is some media inventory. And you uh, want to basically, and uh, you have some constraints and some freedoms. So you've been given that media inventory which has a certain size, a certain shape. If it's a video, it will play a video directly. You've been given some constraints, and you've been given certain rules about how to make something to show in your media inventory slot, which is what we call a creative. So you make a creative. Your creative can be a video, it can be a photograph, it can just be a bunch of text, whatever it is. And uh, your goal is that uh, you communicate something in that creative which gets people to click on it, which gets people intrigued, interested, and then they come to your platform, uh, and then they consume more information about whatever it is you're selling, if it's a product or a service, and then they uh, generate revenue. So social media is a little bit more of advertising in that sense. The other thing is also social media does allow you to target very, very specific groups of people. So you can target somebody who has a dog on Instagram. They know a lot about people, and they have made
okay.
that information available to advertisers, because basically the survivor of those platforms depends on advertisers generating good ROI from the media inventory that they have. So targeting would be one aspect. You find out more about your users. You start seeing patterns among your users, and you use those patterns to target them on social media, and then you communicate something which draws their attention, gets them onto your platform, and then hopefully results in a sale.
Okay. And the dog thing is quite creepy if they know
Yeah,
that you have a dog or
that's,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's just the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I don't want to know. I think it's better that way. Uh, so, so you talked about um, uh, two parts to this. One, to marketing generally,
Mhm.
which you kind of talked about throughout this thing. One is trying to get a like kind of an intuitive sense of the customer by talking to customers, or even going to your own experience. You're a human, so I believe so therefore going to your experience as a human as a helps with figuring out how to position something, how to message about something. uh, Similarly, talking to others, your potential customers, will also help create that intuitive sense of what you need to do. But then after that, through this dog stuff and so on, you get to use data to come to slightly more rigorous conclusions about uh, what how you should message things, what your target audience is, what they like, and so on. So So can you talk a bit about that part? How you use data to refine your understanding of your market, to refine your message?
Hmm. I I guess this gets into a little bit more depth. So data is usually used to figure out if you're when it comes to marketing. Usually you will use it to figure out, also depends on what kind of data you have. So the data that you get from social channels, so if you're marketing on YouTube, Facebook, whatever data you get from there, all they can tell you is whether whatever you're doing is giving you the objectives. If your objective is sale, all it can tell you is whether it is resulting in a sale or not. uh, so it is up to you to design more experiments. uh, you think about, how do I give an analogy here? I mean, there's various ways of conveying value. Um, so I, I think, especially, so words, for example, have a huge impact uh, when it comes to effective marketing or effective advertising. Uh, so I think there's a quote by Dumbledore that words are our most inexhaustible source of magic, which is something that I truly believe in. And I think throughout you will see, even if you read some of the classic marketeers who've created amazing products, or created like made big, or created big markets out of new products, for example. So copywriting, as it is called, which is just a fancy word for writing words, has a huge impact on a human being, right? So does a picture. I mean, a picture speaks 1,000 words, as they say, right? A video speaks 1,000,000 words. But that is where you sort of start building your experiments around. You start to figure out how to best communicate with the user. If I say, hey, look at this, if there are 1,000 people who are seeing something and I say, hey, look at this, maybe five of them would look. But if I say, you are facing this problem, maybe 30 of them would look. And if I say, I can solve this problem for, I don't know, 30% of you, maybe like 15%. So I mean, there are different ways of communicating a message, which is sort of how you start experimenting. um, in terms of, and then okay, I think you also mean how do you track people through the customer journey. So we're now speaking more about online. So in online, what happens is that once somebody clicks your ad, uh, they will come to your website, and then you can also track them on your website to see what their behavior was. And you can see if you can track them through the entire journey and see if they converted or not. uh, Essentially what you're trying to measure is, did I get sales profitably or not. And that you can do uh, by measuring everything. First of all, ensuring that you have the right infrastructure on your website as well as on your social media platforms, to you set it up in the right way, that you're measuring everything. And second of all, by constructing these experiments which are just tweaking things a little bit, and you're not scaling anything too much. You're just spending, let's say, $100, $200 a day. And then when you find something, and this can happen, right? You might write something in one way, and then you write it another way. You might see that, oh, there are three times more people who are interested in this product. So for example, they say anytime you write the word free on any marketing campaign, your clicks will go up two times right?
Okay.
So that word is very powerful. Or if you write discounts, you might see a 30% increase. So you construct these experiments, and then you have to design it in a way where whatever data you get is giving you the information that you want. um,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
so that
So
you can figure out what's working.
Mhm. So actually, the analogy which occurs to me is might be slightly weird. Is Einstein and Infeld wrote this book, The Evolution of Physics, which now I can recommend as a marketing textbook, because they talk about where basically constructing a scientific theory is kind of like you have a clock on a wall, and
Okay.
you don't know how it works. You don't understand the mechanism of that clock. You can't open it. You can't check what's happening inside. You don't know what the dials moving are and so on. All you can see is the face, and maybe you can move the dials around on the visible dials around, and you need to figure out how that clock works, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all you have is your what you can observe, the pieces of data you can observe, and you're trying to figure out how that clock actually works, using by trying to capture the right data, right, the right observations, and
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out how things work. So it's kind of like constructing a scientific theory. Basically, that's what you're doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, kind of. Because, yeah, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. So, yeah, so the data that you actually want is, who is this person? Can I
Hmm.
know more about this person so that
Hmm.
I can figure out a way to reach them more effectively?
Hmm.
That nth level of detail is not available.
Yeah.
So you have to, which is for various privacy laws and whatever reasons, which
Yeah.
sucks for a marketeer,
Yeah.
uh, but is great for us as human beings.
Yeah.
So that is true. And yeah, we
Hmm.
have to figure out with whatever data they give us, and then we can design experiments around it
Hmm.
to help our own understanding
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
use that.
No, but even if you knew everything a person was doing, you still don't have access to the inside of their mind. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's what you want access to, right? As a marketer, you want to be sitting in their first
Yeah.
person perspective, which you
Absolutely
won't be
right.
able to get. So
Not.
therefore, all you
Yeah.
can see is what they do, and from that you're trying to infer what's going on in the mind, right? So
Yeah.
they click here, so therefore they must be thinking this.
Yeah.
They do that, and therefore they must be feeling this, and so on. I guess
Sure.
that's kind
For
of
sure. Yeah.
what. Mhm.
Yeah. I mean,
And
if there was a way to tell, uh, like, if there's, again, going back to, let's say, pregnant women, if a pregnant woman feels, oh, I'm having backache, if at that very moment you could tell them, you could just suggest, hey, check out this product, right?
yeah,
Marketing would be the cheapest thing ever.
yeah, yeah,
You can't.
yeah. Yeah, you can't enter the mind of a
Yeah,
person.
yeah. Not for now, maybe in the future.
Yeah, maybe.
True.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we can kind of start closing out there. Is there anything else you think that, especially somebody who's contemplating getting into marketing, or maybe you yourself when you were thinking about getting into marketing, what like words of advice would you have to that person slash you? Uh,
Hmm. So I think for me, it was, I never thought that I could get into marketing because uh, I had a feeling that I wanted to do it even early on in my career, maybe even back in college. Uh, but I always thought that, okay, you needed to have an MBA in marketing, and I did not want to do an MBA. After college, uh, I enjoyed working, and I didn't want to go back to studying. Uh, Luckily for me, the whole digital marketing revolution came about, so people like me could also learn marketing. So uh, the young people today, there are a lot of resources available online,
hmm,
uh, and really, I think, uh, if you just start checking out things on YouTube, you will get enough information uh, for whatever questions you have,
hmm,
and not even like starting from a fundamental understanding of what marketing is, all the way extending to, okay, how do you run specific campaigns and what are their advantages on Instagram, or how do you run specific campaigns on YouTube, what
hmm,
kind of creative or what kind of content will resonate with people who are on these platforms, right?
hmm,
Given whatever mood that they are in. So uh, you can find resources across the spectrum of whatever you need to learn, across the various trees of whatever you need to learn online. Uh,
hmm.
and I think that's really opened up the world quite a bit, in a good way. So for freshers, I would definitely say, if you're not super if you're not educated formally in this field but you are really interested in it, you should definitely check out resources available online and try hard. And there's a lot of companies that are also ready to take chances with freshers. Given the nature of startups today, there's thousands and thousands of startups opening every month. Most of them will need digital marketing, so that is a great way to get into the field. And then as you grow, as your company grows, you will have more marketing budgets, so you can sort of expand from digital marketing to the more mass marketing channels as well. So that's sort of my advice. And yeah, also read a lot of books, experiment, don't be afraid to fail. Even if you fail, you might lose $500, but that's okay. uh, Make sure that you don't make expensive mistakes, but that's about it.
Okay. Cool. Thanks a lot. So I wish I had asked you this question before we started because that would have been helpful. But do you have any resources which you can recommend, maybe books or something which you found to be very valuable in your journey? If not, that's fine. We can always put it in a comment or something like that when you have thought about it. But if there was something which you think has impacted you,
I think so. There's a bunch of YouTubers. I don't remember any names.
hmm,
I mean, Seth Godin is a good one. So I do know books that are pretty good. So there's one book called Scientific Advertising, um by Cloud Hopkins, I think. That's
okay,
a good one to give you a very layman's understanding of what advertising is. There is also uh, Breakthrough Copywriting, I think, or Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, which is another great book. Um, then, when it comes to digital marketing, there are several courses that are available online, but I would recommend that you just use free resources, because I don't think that there's anything uh, so valuable in these courses that you can't learn for free online. If you're willing to put in the effort and do Google searches and YouTube searches. Um, yeah, I think these are two. Then there's another book called, when it comes to branding, there is a book called, so Seth Godin is one on branding, and then there is also The Brand Gap, which is a good book.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think they are top three, four resources.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think I'm going to just make that a general practice after at the end of these live streams to ask for recommendations of resources. So so that people can. I think that would be very valuable to whoever's watching. Okay, so thanks a lot, Deepu, for being here. That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed myself, and I learned a lot. Hopefully, others have and will form as well. And yeah, I just wanted to end with whoever is around, please subscribe to the channel. We will be doing more of these live streams going forward. And yeah, thanks a lot, Deepu, once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhav. Nice
Thanks.
talking.